Hello friends, welcome to my channel. In today's class, we are going to see an interesting program which will be sort of a simple project where which we would be expanding in our later sessions also. So right now for the time being what we are going to do is we are simply going to read that and we are going to read some values from the user, that is names of students and marks from the user, and we are going to save them in the form of separate list objects in a binary file. And when we read the values, we need to print it in the form of a nice tabular format. So we'll be learning another module over here, that is pretty table module, and we will understand how we can use the pretty table module and how it will enable us to print the values properly in a tabular format. So let's begin. So let me first reduce my screen over here and let's go to our program over here. The program is this: create a simple Python project to store names of students and their marks in separate list objects and display them in tabular format. So we are going to do this. Let us come to our program. We open a new program over here and close the previous one and save it. So I'm going to save it with the name as student project binary files dot py. So in this particular project now we will be working with different functions. So I'm going to first import pickle and I'm going to import the pretty table command also, but I'm going to come to that a little later. First let us understand the basic idea of the program. So what we are going to do, we will start with, now in our program today what we are going to do is, let us plan out. We will be creating two functions. One function would be for write operation and one function would be for read operation from the file. So we would be writing these two functions, and from here in the main, that is in the main global area, we are going to provide a menu to the user. So the menu would be of this type, where we would be giving the options to the user. So right now the option would be for insert and display. Slowly and gradually we would be adding other menu items to this, that is search, locate, update, modify, delete, all of them. But right now we will be having three options: insert, display and exit. And depending upon the user's choice, these functions would be executed. So this is going to be the main structure of our program. So let's begin. So we have this program over here, and first I'm going to perform write operation. But before performing write operation, let me define the main area. This is my main area, and I'm going to keep my file object as a global variable. So I'm going to open it as a global variable, open my file, and the file name is going to be student.dat, and my file mode is going to be AB plus or A plus B, whichever you are comfortable with. So we have opened the file, and now we are going to go scroll upwards, create the function for writing to the file. So I'm typing here write to file, or I can write student. So I'm going to use this write student function. Now the very first thing which I'm going to do is create a list object. So for that I will be having, I'll take a value, that is a list which will contain student records. So let me take REC, or record, as the name of the list, and create an empty list first of all. Now again using the same drill, I'm going to ask for values from the user. So while ANS is equal to Y, now it would consist of students' roll number, name and marks. So I'm going to ask for roll number first. Enter the roll number, student name, enter the name of student and marks. This should be in float because sometimes students may enter marks in fractions also, like 80.5, 40.25, okay, 75.75. So this, for all those cases we have to use this. Enter the marks, and now I'm going to add all these values to the record, to the list. So let me take record dot append. And now because I'm using record dot append, I'm going to append everything in the form of a list. Append roll number, record dot append as name and marks. So one single list object which will contain roll number, name of the student and marks. And now I can dump this to the file. So I will write pickle.dump record, comma, file. And once I have done this, right in the beginning, I'm going to set record as an empty list, because every time I would be emptying the list, adding new values to it and sending it to the file. So once this is done, my file has been created. So now what I can do is simply I can type file.flush. This will save the changes to the file. And next is the function for reading from the file. So I'll type here read student. And now first of all, file.seek function, which will set the pointer, file pointer at the beginning of the file. Then I'm going to now read everything in the form of a record. So what I'm going to do is open the try block, while true. Now I'll use the same variable record, pickle.load, and the file object. And firstly, I'm going to simply use the print function to see whether everything is working fine or not. So then except EOF error. And over here, I can see, and I can just type end of file. So that's all. And now let us ask from the user what the user wants to do. So let me provide a menu to the user, and we give a name student management system. Print. The first one is insert new student record, and the next one would be print display all students. And finally, I'll be asking for the choice, user's choice. So I'm going to write here choice equals int input. Enter your choice. And I forgot one of them, that is exit. I have to type that also. This is the exit command, that is to come out of it. And this has to continue this part. File would remember this file has to be opened only once, and it has to be closed at the end of the execution of the program. So I'm not going to keep that within a loop. Other parts I'm going to just put them in a loop. So I'm going to type here while choice is not equal to 3. So while choice is not equal to 3, continue doing the work. Okay, continue displaying the menu again and again and asking for the user's choice. And the moment it becomes 3, it has to leave the, it has to come out. So I'm going to type here if choice is equal to 1. That means insertion has to be performed, and for this purpose we will be calling the function write student. And once this is done, you can just provide a message here, student record saved successfully. And then next is elif choice equals to 2. If I take else, it will consider all the values 2, 3 and so on. So okay, I can just try with the else statement over here. That would be for display all records, and here it would be read student. And finally, I'm going to just close the file dot close. So let us try with this. Okay, it gives me an error, file not found. So let's check what is the problem. So we did a mistake over here. We had to provide this slash. Choice is not defined. Okay, so choice in the beginning was not defined. So we can just take choice as some value, and let me, okay, just a second. Okay. So we'll just try to remove this bug because choice is not defined yet. So for this purpose, what I'm going to do is simply I'm going to type here while true, and choice would be asked over here, and here I'll have to provide elif choice equal to display all records. Else I will be simply writing here break, just include a break statement which will show end of program. So now let me run the program. Okay, so we'll start with insertion of records. Roll number 1, name of the student as Amit Raj, marks as 45. Roll number 2 as Velan, and the marks as 87. Roll number 3 Kavita Sharma, marks as 76. Roll number 4, at least 5 records we need. And roll number 5. And it's going to, it is simply asking for the names. I think it is turning into an infinite loop. So again another bug. Yes, we forgot to ask from the user whether the user wants to continue inserting records or not. So we are going to provide this value over here to check whether user wants to continue entering records. So for this purpose, I'll need to interrupt the execution and start the execution once again. So my first choice, again I need to insert the records of the student. So I give the marks over here, third one. Oh, I again committed a mistake, so I'm very sorry on that, students. Uh, let us give some easy values over here. Let us do it with one student only for purposes of quickening our task. So I'll be very careful now. See, these are some unavoidable situations which can occur, so your program should be able to handle all of that properly. So when further we would be discussing the same program, we would be including a lot of exception handling routines there, which would allow us to handle these problems efficiently. 78.5. And student records saved successfully. I'm going to give the second choice, so data is also displayed properly, and you can see that the program continues. Now if I enter choice number 3, our program stops executing over there. So this is where our program stops executing. So now let us try to display the records in a proper tabular format instead of a list format. So for this we will again go back there and import a Prettytable module. So we'll type from Prettytable import Prettytable, and we come to the read function over here. Firstly we will create a row header. So it would be, let us take a variable row header, and this would be a list because Prettytable mostly works on lists. So we are going to create a row header which would contain roll number of students, then student name, and finally it would be containing marks. So this is a row header which we created, and now we'll create a Prettytable using student table, stud table, and you can see I have used camel case there, and I'm simply going to type here Prettytable. This will create a Prettytable object created. Now to this Prettytable object I'm going to add the field header, that is row header. So I'm going to type here field names equals row header. That is, I'm going to create, this row header which I had created, I'm just going to use that to insert a row header, a header row in my table. And now every record which I am printing, because this Prettytable module works on lists, so now we would be using another method over here, that is stud table dot add row, which will add the rows being extracted in the form of list from your binary file to the Prettytable which is created. Now because it accepts only lists as arguments, and we have already had read the values, we had already written the values in the form, we had already written the records in the form of list in our disk file. So when it is being read, it is read in the form of a list only. So when we are fetching this record from the disk file, it is a list. So this record list is being added as a row, so this would add a row to the Prettytable, that is student table. So after everything is done, that is after reading has been done, we can print it over here. That is, I can type here print stud table. Now instead of reading one row and printing it within the while block, what I am going to do is it is going to keep adding the rows. Let us understand this mechanism over here. Suppose your file already contains some values, like we have roll number 1, Amit Raj, 75.5. So you can see that already some values are given over here, right? These are the contents of your disk file. In the beginning, the pointer is set over here. So when it is read, it would be read in the form of a list. तो जो read हो रहा है वो खुद ही एक list के form में है. So now what we do is, when we call the Prettytable module, the Prettytable function, it creates an empty table. Now when I am using this statement over here, that is row header, this row header creates a list containing the column names, roll number, student name, marks, because in a table we should have the names, that is roll number, student name and marks. So this statement over here, that is stud table equals pretty table, it first creates the table, then this, that is dot field names equals row header, it adds this header row to the table. And now we have to add the rows. So for that we have used this statement, that is stud table dot add row record, which will read one record. Record is already read by this statement. So now this record will be added to this pretty table as the first record. 1 Amit Raj 75.5. Then the next time read the second record and add it to the table. So that would be 2 S. Velan 85.5. Then 3 Kavita Sharma 45. So that is also added to the table. So this takes place within while loop. And when EOF condition is raised, at that time the while loop stops executing, the try block exits, and at that time we have provided the statement here print stud table, which will print this table on the screen. So let's see how it is done. We are going to run the program. First of all, we will use only, we are going to, because we don't intend to insert any new record, so we will simply press 2 and you can see how it is displayed. It's displayed in a proper tabular format. So this is how you can do, but this tabular format works only with proportionate fonts like Courier New, that is monospace font. So you should always look for fonts which are monospace in nature, like Courier New, Consolas, Source Code Pro, and so on. These are some of the fonts which are monospace fonts. If you change the font by going to option, configure idle and select some other font over here, you will see that it doesn't work properly in the desired manner. Suppose let me take it as Forte and let me apply this, and here if you try to display, you can see that the entire format has changed and it has got distorted. But if we change it to any font which is monospace font like Courier New, then you can see that it again takes up the correct format. So this is how it is. This pretty table module works, and you can use this to uh, create, you can use this to display any information in a proper tabular format. So we learned something new, that is Prettytable, and Prettytable is used for displaying records in a proper tabular format, and it gives a proper look to your data values also. This was the problem which we used to face last year while printing something, that is if we want to print a telephone directory or we wanted to print some records, we were unable to print it in the uh, proper format. So with this we will be able to do it properly. So with this we are going to end this class. We will continue in the